The three most important, crucial things that were said during this entire almost 2-hour Twitter space. I guess technically it was just over an hour, but including the tech issues. The first was not even something that Ron DeSantis said. It was actually something that Elon Musk said. Nonetheless, this was one of the most important things that was covered in this Twitter space. You can take a listen right now.
So Twitter was indeed expensive, but free speech is priceless.
Twitter was indeed expensive, says Elon Musk, but free speech is priceless. The reason I think this is so important is because Elon Musk obviously just appointed or hired a new CEO, Linda Yaccarino, to run Twitter. And she's like everything that we would not hire, everything we do not want in a CEO for Twitter. She buys into ESG. She's woke. She doesn't believe in free speech. She thinks that advertisers should have the heckler's veto over what you and I are allowed to say about controversial topics. I don't like her at all, and I think it's a very bad pick for Elon Musk. So it is reassuring to hear him say, yes, Twitter was indeed expensive, but free speech is priceless, because maybe he'll realize that his pick for CEO is not good, and certainly hold her accountable if she wants to implement any policies, known or unknown to him, that would restrict our free speech. So I think that's extremely critical. I know it's not necessarily related to Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign, but it is good to hear. It is good to hear. But Ron DeSantis, two of the most important things, or the two things that I think are the most important that Ron DeSantis said, is first, he rejected the idea that there should be some sort of amnesty when it comes to any and all politicians of both parties and how they behaved during COVID-19. Not their personal behavior. I don't care if they're triple masked, if they want to be, whatever. It's a loser thing to do, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the policies that they imposed on us, the lockdowns, businesses being closed, children not being allowed to go to school, forced masks, vaccine mandates that cost people their job. And Ron DeSantis rejected the idea that politicians and public health officials who called for those policies, who implemented those policies, that it should just be bygones be bygones. No, Ron DeSantis said there needs to be an honest reckoning about what happened. Take a listen.
Well, first, we need an honest reckoning about what happened during COVID. And the only honest reckoning is that all of those agencies, all of the elites, the public health establishment, they failed. They instituted bad policies. Obviously, it's a novel virus, but I think what happened was when the data was becoming more and more apparent that the path they were on was wrong, they doubled down and wanted to do it even more. And I really believe had Florida not just kind of stood in the way, I think this country would have had rolling lockdowns for probably a 2-year period. And so their impulses were authoritarian. They were not following the data. And I think the U.S. government needs to acknowledge the failures. And I think all of those agencies need to be cleaned out. What I saw just dealing with them was I saw a interest in the narrative and in politics over evidence-based reasoning and evidence-based medicine. And so I don't have confidence that those agencies are up to the task. And I think you need major overhaul of the whole enchilada with respect to public health in this country.
It's like music to my ears. Like, if there's one argument that I'm not a single issue voter, I'm really not. I'm not a single issue voter, even though I feel strongly about so many different things. But if there's one argument that we are not hearing from very many politicians, really any politicians who are in executive positions of power, it's that argument. And it's that argument that we must demand from our Republican candidates. I'm not sure I could have articulated it any better than Ron DeSantis did. He talked about them being authoritarian. He talked about them rejecting the evidence. And he understands exactly what Florida did, not just bucking the trend, but actually protecting the entire country from further lockdowns. If it hadn't been for Florida, there wouldn't have been. Florida was a bulwark against Fauci locking down our whole country. That's perhaps the single most important thing that Ron DeSantis said. The second most important thing that he said is a question that you and I talk about so often. We talk about draining the swamp. We talk about bureaucrats in the federal government who rule our lives, even though they're unelectable and unfireable, so unaccountable to us. We talk about the administrative state. We all want to abolish the administrative state. That is something a lot of conservatives agree on. The question is, how is this done? right? You can't just go in and think you can play whack-a-mole with bureaucrats like Fauci and then Birx and then James Comey. You can't just fire individuals when the entire administrative state is staffed with these bureaucrats, and our legislature has delegated, and I should put that in quotation marks, delegated their legislative authority to these administrative agencies, and the judicial branch is practicing this deference to administrative agencies where they just accept the so-called experts in the agency's word over the voice of the people as represented in the legislature by their representatives, right? Ron DeSantis went right to the root of this. And if you guys, some of you watching this show, some of you VIPs, some of you true blues here are going to recognize this topic of conversation, because we've talked about this before a long time ago, and we've talked about this on the Liz Wheeler Show community, on Locals, in the VIP section. We've talked about Chevron deference. Maybe you don't know this phrase, maybe you've never heard of it, maybe you know exactly what it is, but Chevron deference is a Supreme Court jurisprudence where the courts defer to the administrative agencies and these experts, and they just say, oh, it's because of Chevron. It's because of Chevron. And they don't actually re-examine whether this is constitutionally sound. Ron DeSantis went right to the root of this and says that we're getting rid of. Listen to this.
Chevron deference really curtailed or maybe even eliminated based on the U.S. Supreme Court's upcoming jurisprudence. And I think that's another reason why the bureaucracy has become so powerful, because courts have basically been told they can pretty much do what they want, and courts are supposed to just defer. I don't think that that's actually correct. I think the courts, they have to make a judgment about what does the law actually say, and you can't just defer to quote unquote experts in the bureaucracy.
Again, I know a lot of politicians who talk about draining the swamp. And I'm not trying to take a veiled shot at Trump, right? I'm not on either team here. I'm an undecided Republican primary voter, if you will. But there are a lot of people that talk about draining the swamp. There are not a lot of people who have an articulated playbook for exactly how they're going to do that. I loved hearing that from Ron DeSantis. Now, going back to what I said before, the left is going to attack. I said the left is going to attack Ron DeSantis, not based on anything that he said, but just based on the tech issues. And Biden tweeted during Biden did not tweet, let's be real. I'm sure he doesn't know how to operate Twitter. Joe Biden's staff tweeted from Joe Biden's Twitter account during this Twitter space. Can we bring that up on the screen? This is a pretty funny tweet. It's element number 5. It actually is funny. I don't think that Biden's funny. I don't think Kamala's funny. I think they're incredibly destructive Marxists. But they posted, donate to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And Joe Biden's caption was, this link works. As opposed, of course, to the Twitter spaces that was crashing. Hi, guys. It's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.